If the people don't understand, there's no way they're going to get it right. And some of us in leadership walk away super frustrated. I can't even believe they didn't do that. I can't even believe they didn't get those reports right. I can't even believe it took that long to get this result. This is ridiculous. Time out. Like, I didn't really even understand what you were asking me to do. And I tried to ask a few times and you said, you got it. You understand. I'm sure you'll do fine. Right? We don't take enough time to make sure they have role clarity. My name is Bobby Mink with Choice Consulting and Management, and we want to welcome you back to Choices Create Change podcast. Today, we'll be wrapping up our two-part series on the advantage, why organizational health trumps everything else in business by Patrick Lencioni. One of the keys to amazing culture and the amazing advantage you create is clarity. Everyone must know what matters most every day as we come to this organization or this family or this department, right? And so there's 6 critical questions that we want to get started with today. The first one being, why do we exist? So I understand we definitely have to make money. So the question is, do we exist just to make money? So we definitely have to make money. So that's definitely part of what we do and why we do it. But also, what is the reason we show up? Why are we in the industry we're in? Why are we in heating and air? Why are we in the law business? Or why are we in the medical field? Or why are we in home building? Right? So why do we exist? And I had a builder here in Atlanta once who told me, Bobby, we need to remember as a team that we are creating a home where families create memories, right? So all of a sudden we exist to create an environment, a product, present a product where families can create memories. So that is very heartfelt. And when you show up to work and you understand that part of what you do is relational, the first birthday party ever, the first baby was born, the first grandchild might have been celebrated, right? So there's a bunch of things that can happen inside a philosophy of we build homes for family create memories. So why do you exist? Why did you pick this industry? Why did you pick what we're doing? Why did you pick how we're doing it? I don't think we spend enough time on the foundations of our business and sometimes even our family, right? So why do we exist? The next question is, how do we behave? So in this process of being an organization or a department, how do we behave? In other words, what are the values that are important to us as we work together as a team, as a department, as an organization? How do we behave? What is expected or not expected? What is acceptable or unacceptable? And the only way we know that is by having values. We need to have clear, communicated values that we each understand and can tell you what they are. And here's the other key. We need to make sure that those values have descriptive words, right? If one of our core values is integrity, one of the descriptions might be doing the right thing when nobody notices or when nobody knows, right? It might be customer service might be a core value. In other words, default on the side of the customer. Just be careful if it's a giant number that we're going to expend. But as I show up taking the high road, I want to make sure that I lean toward the customer when we have a decision or a challenge or a frustration that happens, right? So as we develop or communicate these core values, you also need descriptive words where people can understand what that word means here, right? Because integrity for me might be doing what I say every time. Integrity for somebody else might be letting the people know maybe what they need, but you don't need to tell them everything, right? So we got to make sure that we understand how we behave. Here's what happens when we don't know. There is some significant frustrations that begin to happen in organizations. They never should have said that. That is not part of how we do things around here. I can't even believe they had that attitude. And some of that is caused because it's not clear what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And so part of that, how do we behave? What are the values we all agree to have in place that help us determine how we work together and how we behave? All right. The third critical question is, what do we do? What do we do is different from why we exist, right? What we do could be home building. What we do could be real estate investment. What we do could be heating and air. What we do could be an attorney's office, right? What we could do is litigations. But we need to make sure what we do, what is it we're trying to do in the world? What's our mission? What are we trying to do through what we do? What do we do as an organization? You could just produce product and make money. We could do that, but it needs to be documented. It needs to be written. And we need to understand that's the game we're playing. The fourth critical question is, how will we succeed? So how are we going to take this mission of why we exist and what we do and these values we have in an organization, and how did we start to succeed? What is our strategy to take all of this, put it into a process that helps us get where we're going? What is our strategy to execute this system, this process, this product, this experience? And how does that turn into money or 5-star Google reviews or employee satisfaction? How do we succeed? We need to make sure we have a process and it can be communicated. We have a strategy and everybody begins to understand that strategy of how we succeed here at this organization or here in this department. Number 5, what is the most important right now? So what is the current priority? And I can tell you, doing this all over the country with companies, there's a lot of days where there's a lot of most important things. And I can tell you what's happening to the team and the leadership team. People's are on the front line or down in the trenches. There is confusion because what was important yesterday changed this morning. What I'm working on right now, oh, why are you doing that? Well, yesterday you guys said, oh, sorry, that changed. Today we're doing this, right? What is the most important thing right now? What is the current priority? Not only for the company or my department, which we need to know, but for me as an individual, when I show up today, what is the most important thing I need to be working on today? Right? And once again, it's going to take some time to set aside some time to think strategically, to think long term, to think through results. Because what happens is we become very reactive as an organization or a department, and that reaction creates chaos. It creates customer satisfaction erosion. It creates warranty. It creates the lack of profit, right? It's just a mess when we don't know what's the most important thing. Okay. The last critical question is, who must do what? Role clarity. Well, I was working with a company last week, maybe 11 people, 15 people in the company. And you would think, well, everybody in a company that small knows what they're doing. Not true. Not true. And so what happens, I start down one road, I start doing one thing, and somebody above me walks by going, what are you doing? You shouldn't be doing that. That's not how we do that. Well, that's what Bill said. Well, Bill was wrong, right? Okay. So I'll start doing it this way. And what happens is that confusion crushes us when we're on your team. We don't really know what we're supposed to be doing. We thought we were doing it right. We found out we're not doing it right, but we don't even know who we're talking to. And there's only 11 of us, right? So one of the crucial things is you need clarity on who is responsible for what, who's accountable for the decision and the results in that chair for that responsibility. It needs to be perfectly clear. And if I have a team of 2 or 3, who is over those 2 or 3 and who is responsible that they are doing what they need to do and getting great results? Once again, we've said it many times on the podcast. Our job as leaders and managers is to create environments where your team can crush it. So the 1 or 2 or 3 people that might be on our team, are they crushing it? And do they understand who their resource is and who they need to go through to discuss challenges or opportunities or frustrations that might be just outside of their area? We need role clarity. Okay. So vision and leadership. We need to make sure, as we just said, that the company's vision of who we are and where we're going and what we're trying to achieve is super clear. We need to make sure that everybody understands the organizational structure and who is responsible for the results, who is responsible for making timely decisions, and who would we go to if things are not going right? Who do we go to if we want to celebrate? All of that vision and leadership needs to be connected. The values, once again, we talked about it. The values need to be connected to the vision and the leadership of what we're doing. As a leader or a manager for an organization or in a department, you should see my behaviors match the values we have communicated. You should see making the decisions for the area I'm over in my area. You should not see me seeing somebody else in another area and going to them and telling them what to do. And let me just speak right to the owners and the visionary leaders. Be careful walking around, noticing something and telling somebody on the team what to do, because you just knocked out the legs of whoever's in charge, whoever their boss is, whoever they report to. Because their boss comes in and says, why are you doing this? Well, Mr. Bill, the owner, came over. He told me to do that. Why did you do that? We had a plan. We had a process. We're working on this for a reason. We got an end goal in place. So we got to make sure that we manage the responsibilities that we are required and that are part of our job, and be very careful not getting into other people's business or other parts of the company, because maybe we've been here a long time. Let me tell you what you need to do. I've been here a long time. Bill would probably say the same thing, but let me go ahead and tell you, it's causing tremendous confusion and frustration on the team. That culture is not crushing it. It is so confusing and so frustrating. I'm not sure what to do. So what happens? I'll tell you what happens. Your people become passive and they begin to wait for hopefully the right person to come by and tell them what to do. And then they hope what they're working on is the right thing to do, but they're not really sure. Right. And so as Mark Miller said in his book, The Heart of Leadership, when you don't have the heart of the person on your team, the person in your organization, you don't get all of them, all their skill set, all their gifts, all their passions, right? Because they're confused. All right. The other thing is people and talent. We made a statement the other day. We really need to start moving toward results and using the people to get those results, not trying to find all the right people to go figure out how to get results. That is backwards. Who are we? What are we trying to accomplish? Where are we going? How do we know the process to make sure we're being successful and crushing it? And we need to make sure we have the people with the right talent in the right seats, with the right responsibility and clarity for what they're doing and how they contribute to this organization, and how we see that play out day to day, week to week, month to month, right? We've got to make sure our people and our talent match what we're trying to accomplish, right? We also have the mission and vision that we talked about earlier. Why do we show up here? Why is that important? And what are we trying to accomplish? And what impact are we trying to make in the world, in our community, in this 3-county area, with what we do for a living, with what we're producing and what we're creating and what we're doing? Okay. Here's the other thing. We need strategic simplicity. Like, complexity kills execution. And here's what I know. Sometimes it becomes this bureaucracy, and it could be even 10 or 15 people. It doesn't have to be 50 or 100 or 500 people. We create this process. Usually it comes from somebody that's super detailed and maybe a little bit fearful. Okay, you got to make sure you do this. You got to make sure you check that. You got to make sure. And all of a sudden you have this massive checklist, this massive process, right? And so all of a sudden everybody gets so depressed. Like, it takes me forever to do this. It's so redundant. It's not needed. If this department would just do their job, if this team member would just do their job every time, we wouldn't have to have all these checklists and all this massive process, right? The complexity just kills it. At the end, you're just like, whatever. I did what I thought. I did the checklist. I don't know what to tell you. It took me friggin' forever to do this. It should have been done in an hour. It took me 2.5 days, right? So complexity kills execution. And you need to be careful, visionary leader, owner, CEO, COO. We have to be careful. Department head, your VP. We've got to be careful, because a lot of times we're using our filter to create these processes. And our filter has all the stories of your past and all the frustrations and all the times you were taken advantage and all the fear and all the times you got burned. That all comes to the forefront when you're creating this process. And you say, well, we need to make sure we check everything before this goes. And I can tell you, some of us just need a little guidance, a couple of guardrails, and just let me run and go make it happen. And if I miss it by a little bit, call me in. Let's discuss it. I'll make an adjustment and I'll go chase it again. Be careful. Complexity kills. Multiple levels of approval or review kill us. We did the checklist. Okay, but Bill over at the CEO has to review it, and then sales has to review it, and then the owner wanted to review it. So what was supposed to take an hour that took a day and a half now is on week number 3, and we still haven't done it. I can tell you, time is money. Right? There's interest carry, there's cash flow, there's overhead, there's lost opportunities, there's missed cash flow opportunities, there's missed profit opportunities. Why? Because we're stuck in the middle of this strategic chaos that is so convoluted and difficult, we give up before we even finish, right? we just need to do this, this, and this. And I don't know why they make us do this whole booklet. So just be careful. Cultures that have learned how to be lean and strategic and simple are running circles around these chaotic companies. Massive processes and checklists to make sure we all double check so that everybody did their job like they're supposed to is fear-based. It is the wrong filter. We need to have people that are responsible for their job and accountable. And when it doesn't happen, we just need to have conversations about what happened and how do we fix it. We don't need 14 pages of checklists that take 2.5 days, multiple levels of approval. We don't need 6 meetings to make one decision. Just have a little faith in the right person. Here's what we're trying to achieve. Here's what we want to try to get done. What do you think? How quickly could you probably do that? And can you just do it? Because somebody on the team says, be careful because we always forget this and this and this. And the last guy that worked here, he forgot that and that. So now we have this nice 33 item checklist and you better use that, Bill. But Bill doesn't need the checklist. Just tell him what you want to do. Tell him when you want it done and let the dude run and see what happens. Okay. Strategic simplicity. We got to get there. Which goes back to role clarity. When we have an organizational structure of some kind that's not just carried around in somebody's head. Oh, I think that's Susie's department. I think you go talk to her. Okay. I think is not a process. You can't measure it. I'm confused as soon as you say it and I leave because I'm not even sure I'm talking to the right person. Right. So we need some role clarity for your team of 5 or your team of 15 or your team of 25 or your team of 2,500. Right. What have you hired me to do? What am I accountable for as I show up? And do you give me the title and the power? Right? Do you give me when you tell me I need you to do this, are you also equipping me to allow to make decisions at some guideline, some guardrail? Are you allowing me to make decisions to own what I'm supposed to do and to own those results? Right? So are you giving me accountability and clarity? Am I having ownership to knock this out of park and get it done for what you've hired me to do? And have we set correct expectations for what I think I'm going to be doing and what I think my results should be? And do they match what you think I should be doing and what you think the results should be? Because if we're assuming, oh, they should have known, they should have done that. They should have known the results should have looked like that. They should have known is broken. They didn't know, right? So if you're going to give it to me, empower me with some guardrails. Don't spend over 10 grand or don't involve more than whatever the rules are. And just let me run with it, but let me make sure I have clarity in what I'm responsible for. And by the way, owner, CEO, department head, be careful bringing somebody else to help them because they're taking a little bit longer. They're trying to be really thorough. Hey, Bill, can you help them? So now you just crushed us. You didn't trust me. You took it upon yourself to decide that I wasn't doing well. So you brought somebody to help me. You just need to be careful. I need role clarity and I need ownership and I need responsibility. Here's the takeaway. People cannot execute what they do not understand. If I'm not exactly sure how I fit on this team and what I'm doing, it's the same thing in families with kids. We're all different. Parents are different. Kids are different, right? But we've got to make sure that us as siblings can understand, us as children, us as parents. There's communication and leadership and management in the family dynamic, just like there are in organizations. Kids cannot execute what they don't understand, right? So it's the same thing in an organization. No matter where they are in the hierarchy, frontline employees, first tier managers, second tier managers, department heads, VPs, COOs, it doesn't matter where we are. If the people don't understand, there's no way they're going to get it right. And some of us in leadership walk away super frustrated. I can't even believe they didn't do that. I can't even believe they didn't get those reports right. I can't even believe it took that long to get this result. This is ridiculous. Time out. Like, I didn't really even understand what you were asking me to do. And I tried to ask a few times and you said, you got it. You understand. I'm sure you'll do fine. Right? We don't take enough time to make sure they have role clarity. Conflicted direction and conflicted decisions make chaos and erode execution and profitability and customer satisfaction and employee satisfaction. So if that's your organization, let's talk. Hit me up. Choices Create Change / contact us and let's set up a call and see if we can't help do some coaching to help your organization. Here's the other thing. When you finally feel like I understand who we are, I got the mission, I got the vision, we seem to have great core values, people seem to really understand them, It seems like we have everything moving in the right direction. It hasn't felt this good around here in a while. You have to remember, over communicate and reinforce clarity. There's a guy here, great leader, pastor here in Atlanta, Andy Stanley. He made a statement. When you've said it 1,000 times, they've heard it the first time. You guys with parents are laughing at me because you've told them 150 times not to play in the street or not to play with matches, and the last time they got burned, right? So, like, clarity leaks, vision leaks, mission leaks, values leak. They just drip out of us over time when we start to forget. So, one of the disciplines of great culture is we over communicate and reinforce clarity all of the time. Not only am I living it, not only am I trying to make business decisions through our value or through our missions, is this really customer focused? You know, customer service is one of our core values. Do you think this decision is really a customer focused decision? Right. So we need to reinforce that clarity and that vision and mission and those core values all of the time. Decisions, meetings, filters, put it on the wall, put it on shirts. Every business meeting that hopefully you have, which I know we don't have a lot of because people hate meetings because we have the wrong meetings, whole different podcast. Maybe we'll create one. Okay. But what happens is every time we get together, we should be going back to clarity every single time. The opening of your little team meeting with your 11 staff or your 25 staff, and we're going to have a breakfast and we're just going to go over how we did last quarter. You need to start that morning with a story of something that happened that reinforces who we are and the clarity we have as a company. Dude, it is so powerful. Like the good book, it's about stories all the time, right? The more stories, the more we understand, the more we see it, the more we feel it. So we got to over communicate and reinforce clarity all the time, continuing to create and creating alignment and sustainable growth. Because when we hear it often enough and when we see it managed and performed and demonstrated in meetings, through decisions, at gatherings, stories, when we start to hear all that consistently, dude, it becomes unstoppable. You hear everybody on your team down at the very front line, the newest employees, they've only been here 6 months, and you hear them say, is that a customer focused decision? And you're like, what? You've only been here 6 months. I know, but one of our values is customer service. And it doesn't really feel like this is going to be a customer focused decision. It sounds like we're trying to save money or we're afraid we're going to be sued. Or can we talk through this one more time? When the front line is quoting the core values, you know it's starting to work, right? Over communicate and reinforce clarity. Okay. Over communicate clarity. Leaders, you guys running these organizations, you guys running departments, even us as parents running families, we underestimate communication, right? We underestimate the power of consistent words, consistent stories, consistent behavior. We talked about communication is not just verbal and not just hearing. It is watching. Leaders, department heads, parents really underestimate the value of communication, especially consistent communication. As we reinforce the correct behaviors and the values and the mission, and we celebrate people on the front line, or we celebrate our daughter that said, you know, it doesn't feel like we should probably give something to this family. They need something. I need to reinforce and celebrate. That was an awesome thought. You're so sensitive. This is incredible, right? We underestimate the power of the communication. It is super powerful. And repetition creates alignment. What happens, like the company that I was in here in Atlanta, Jalmino Homes and Neighborhoods, 20 years, just amazing culture, almost cultish, right? Mr. Whelan constantly said and posted and shared stories of core values throughout the years, right? And what happens is you could hear me quoting him from a corporate meeting where we had all the company in a room celebrating Christmas or a kickoff breakfast or whatever, right? And so this repetition creates alignment. All of a sudden, some of us that were not doing such a great job, and maybe some of our decisions weren't great, but we keep hearing this and we keep seeing this. All of a sudden, you see our decisions begin to change. You see our filter begin to change. You see our results begin to change because the repetition creates alignment. Look, stop. That is not the decision we need to make. That is not one of our core values. Let's just stop right here. Let's talk through this one more time. That is not who we are as an organization. We have to have those conversations all the time. And oppositely, holy smoke, you crushed that. It only cost us $57. And that lady wrote me a personal letter and said, this has been the most amazing experience ever. Give me a high five. Here's a Starbucks gift card for $25. Take the guys out. Y'all go get something cold to drink, get you a Starbucks, right? That constant, consistent communication of catching people that are faltering or stumbling, help correct that and pulling them back over, and then celebrating over the top when people are living and breathing and acting it out. Woo, it's a little bit unstoppable, right? So let me just ask you, it doesn't matter if you're 5 or 10 people or you're 50 or you're 500 people. How many times in the last month have you communicated vision to your team? Company owner, COO, your department head, your VP. In the trenches, I'm managing a small work group of 6 people. How many times over the last month have you communicated vision? And that's where you see it start to slide. You hear comments like, they should have known. That decision was not customer focused. They should have known better. They didn't. Stop, call them in. Let's talk through it. You're not in trouble. You're not going to be fired. This is not a fear-based organization. But I just wanted to hear how you guys got the decision. And then I wanted to talk to our core value of customer satisfaction and customer service. I need them to help unpack where it went sideways in them. I do not need to dictate to them. Don't ever do that again. Next time you need to make this kind of decision. Next time use this kind of filter. That's broken. I'm just going to say yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, and go back to work. I didn't learn anything. I didn't catch the story. I didn't process it that I missed it. I'm just going to do what the boss says, right? So we have to be consistent. And I'm telling you, we know it's 24/7. We're working 50 and 60 hours a week. We're running around like crazy people, which is a whole nother class. Maximize your time, like priority management. How do you maximize the time the good Lord's given you, right? But what happens to most of us, we run around like crazy people for 10 or 12 hours a day for 5 or 6 days a week. We don't have time carved out to think about the company and our values and the mission and our team and our people. And we don't create a mechanism to gather stories. When you see one, email it to the secretary or email it to head of HR, email it to our HR partner who's part-time, email it. We need to figure out a way to capture that stuff so we can celebrate it, because we underestimate the power of communication and we underestimate the power of repetition. You have to be relentless. And let me just tell you what happens. When you are relentless of living it, demonstrating it, posting it on the walls, putting on the shirts, sharing the stories, dude, you will crush your competitors. If you are doing exactly the same business and they don't have the amazing culture you have, just watch what's fixing to happen. Okay? Meeting pulse. Here's the next thing that goes sideways. I was working with a group in Columbus, Georgia this past week. And one of the things we talked about was meetings. So I asked the room in the session, how do you guys like meetings? Anybody, how many love meetings? Raise your hand. No hands are raised, right? Why? Because we all hate meetings. Why? Because meetings suck. Why? Because they're terrible. You hear everybody say before they get to meeting, bring your computer and bring your iPad, because you can get a lot of work done when you come to one of these meetings. Okay. It's broken, right? The process of communication. What did we just talk about? We underestimate the power of communication, right? We underestimate the power of getting a handful of people in a room with a specific agenda, with a goal of moving the situation and the organization forward every time when we get in this room. It doesn't have to be a meeting where you bring your iPad and your laptop so you can do work, right? So here's what we're coaching, and you have to try it. And here's the other thing. You got to find the person, somebody like me, not me, but somebody like me, operationally bent, that can create the process, create the schedule, invite the people, somebody that sends the notes, somebody that holds people accountable. If you're a visionary leader and you don't have an ops person in your circle of influence, you're struggling. You need somebody that can execute. They can take your visions and your dreams and go make stuff happen. So maybe that's another session we need to do a podcast on. Visionary leaders and integrators, operational people, right? But here's the key. Great organizations are doing daily check-ins, and you might think this is hilarious. Look, I've got several organizations, when we talk about their meetings, they go, Bobby, every morning at 8:30, we meet for 10 minutes. We just gather all 15 people or 20 people down into the break room, and we go around really quick. What's the most important thing today? What you're going to try to get done today? Do you need any help? And everybody has about a minute. We go around the room. Everybody in leadership that's standing there know what's going on. and everybody that's working in the organization or this department knows what everybody's working on, right? What happens? The communication begins to take hold, and that consistency, right? That repetitiveness starts to take hold. So every morning, just a really quick check-in. If we're in different markets, somebody's in, South Carolina, somebody's in California, we can do it by Zoom. We can do it by phone call. It doesn't really matter. Just a quick check-in. How's everybody doing today? What's on your goal for today? Do you need any help? Everybody back to work. Ready, break. Here's the other thing. A weekly tactical meeting. We need to get the correct leaders, CEO, CFO, VP of sales, operations, finance, whatever, land development, whatever that you're doing, product man, whatever that looks like. It could be 3 people because there's only 5 of us. It could be 6 or 7 people. It doesn't ever need to be 10, 12, 15, 18, or 20 people. Too many, way too many people. And here's the filter of who's in the tactical meeting. First of all, it's somebody that buys into who we are and where we're going. We want the person that's half full. We want the person that believes in us as an organization. They believe in what we're doing and they believe in where we're going. We want that person on our leadership team. We don't want the complainer. This will never work. I can't believe we're having this meeting. What a waste of time. Like, I don't need that person, right? But weekly tactical meetings, it's an hour and a half, very specific agenda. The biggest thing is to look at numbers and metrics. The second biggest thing is to identify and solve problems, right? And we should be doing that weekly. I have some companies that didn't do any meetings at all. So we started maybe every other week, which is totally fine. But it's the consistency of communication that creates the difference. Okay. Monthly, we probably need to carve out a different kind of meeting. Maybe it's strategic. We have a tactical and a strategic. So we're looking at bigger picture things, right? People in the room, specific agenda. We're not chasing rabbits. We're not telling a bunch of stories about the old days. And remember Mrs. Jones, she was so difficult. We got a very specific agenda. We get started. We do what we need to do. We knock it out. We make decisions. Everybody has a to-do list, ready, break. Let's go back to work. Everybody is already crazy busy. They don't have time to sit in your meeting that went from an hour and a half to 2 hours to 3 hours. We don't have time. And that's why we hate meetings, right? Weekly tactical, monthly strategic, quarterly should be offsite. You might be able to do it on the premises, but it's at least a half day for small organizations and at least a full day for big organizations. How did we do last quarter? Did we hit our goals? Did we hit we call them rocks, 90-day tasks? Did we hit those? How was our profits? How was our permits? How was our production? How was our sales? How was marketing? What were the results? How was leads? How were the leads? How many did we close? How many did we start? How's production doing? How's our cycle time? I mean, there's a bunch of metrics to talk about. And when we get to the quarterly, we need to look at the past 90 days and how did we do? We need to spend time looking at all of that, right? And then we need to talk about the things we were supposed to get done. Did we get those things done? And if not, why not? And are we going to move some of those to the next quarter? And then before we go into this next quarter, how are we doing with our goal for the year? And then what do we need to do next quarter to keep moving us toward the results we're after for this year, right? Quarterly offsite. Shut everything down, turn the phones off. Once again, very specific agenda. And let's plow through how we're doing as an organization. And let's get it 10 or 30 or 50,000 feet for a few hours and get out of the weeds and trenches and let's think and process, right? The last one is annual. As the year winds up, late October, 1st of November, we need to look at the whole entire year. How did we do versus our goal? How did we do last quarter? How did we do with our rocks and the tasks for the year? How did we do with our issues? How many did we solve? Right? Maybe there's a SWOT analysis. What's going on in the world? What's going on in our marketplace? Are there any struggles we need to look for? There's some threats. There's some opportunities we need to take care of. We need to spend a minute, a day or 2 days thinking bigger and taking the time to breathe. Is our mission and our vision and our values and our 10-year target, is all of that stuff still on target? Are we still doing well, right? The annual, this aligns perfectly with your communication, the communication rhythm of consistency. The consistency over time is what pays off. People start to have a lot of clarity. Things start to move forward. We're solving problems. There's some communication, there's some accountability, there's some responsibility, people raising their hand, taking care of tasks and to-do lists, and the whole culture you can see slowly starts to move forward. All right. The third thing is, we just said it. That's why they're bringing it up again, reinforcing clarity. Are we all consistently communicating who we are, where we're going, what's important to us, right? Are we reinforcing clarity as we hire? Will we have to let somebody go? Are we doing a exit interview to find out what they saw and what they heard? It may only be one or two little things you could take somebody that's getting fired or leaving, but we need to take a chance to capture anything we can from them, right? For reviews. And I know that a lot of people don't do, check-ins or reviews. The old school way is once a year. Your boss would come out, he had this little sheet, he'd say, okay, here's all the things you're doing. These things you're doing really good. These things you don't really do that good. You need to work on those. By the way, here's a bonus. Sign this. Have a good day. That was the review, right? So we've learned since then that relationships and people are the most important thing. So either once a quarter, we need to sit down and talk about, brag on yourself. What have you done? Let's celebrate some things that you accomplished. And after we do that, which is difficult for people, then let's talk about some things that you think could be done better or you could be doing better. Share a couple of things that you wish you could improve or do better on. Then I might share one or two things that I've noticed. I might share a couple of celebrations and things that you crushed. And then together we're going to say, what do you want to do over the next 90 days to work on these 3 or 4 things you want to work on? Do you need to go to class? Do you need Excel classes? Do you need a laptop? Do you need a different desk? Do you need more file cabinets? What is it that you need? It's not being called to the principal's office so somebody can yell you and say, if you don't straighten up, you're going to be fired. This is a warning. That's not what we need, right? We need a place to sit down and let our person tell us what's going on. Then we need to celebrate that. And here's the one that's even better is managing by walking around. Once a month or once every week or two, just wander down the office to somebody that's on your team, stop at the door going, you got a second? How's it going? How's the family? How are you doing? You think everything's going pretty well? Do you feel pretty good with what you're doing? You got any challenges or frustrations? Anything that you need help with, right? The best cultures, there's an open door policy where we all can communicate and it becomes significant and it's also consistent, right? Here's the other thing. The people that are paying the extra price, going the extra mile, thinking and creating and working on things and doing whatever it takes, we need to be watching those people for new opportunities. Do the people around us watch the people that are crushing it get promoted and get new opportunities? They need to, but that's on us as leaders. How about recognition? We need to be able to say good job as often as we can. Hey, I heard about what happened last week with Mrs. Jones. I just want to say that's amazing. Great job. I appreciate it so much. I appreciate your hard work. I appreciate your attitude. It was phenomenal, right? Every time we can catch anybody doing something at least a little bit right, we need to stop and recognize it. It just reinforces our culture and our values and our mission, and it's consistent communication, which makes a difference. If you're not good at recognition, find somebody on your team that is, and have them remind you to go recognize and say thank you, right? Everything we do should try to move us toward reinforcing this culture, reinforcing what we're trying to create here, reinforcing this competitive advantage that we're putting in place, right? Okay, we're going to do a little bit of a review as we wrap up here about building the healthy organization. There's some essentials. We do a class called 8 Essentials of Great Organizations, right? You got vision and leadership. You got people and their talent and them being very clear on what they're doing and being equipped to do that. We've got data that we're watching and metrics to make sure we're creating what our vision and mission is and what we're expecting the outcomes need to be. We need to be looking at that. We've got a consistent communication rhythm through daily check-ins and weeklies and monthlies and quarterlies, right? We've got a process to standardize everything. It's not real if it's not written. So great organizations, healthy organizations have written processes, even if it's Dropbox or it's somewhere that I have to find it digitally. We have places where if you're not sure, it is written and we can go look at it together. We have a process to identify, discuss the causes of, and solve issues. We have a process weekly or monthly where we get together, we discuss the biggest issues, we unpack what in the world is causing this issue in our organization and how do we resolve that, right? It needs to be a consistent rhythm of identifying and solving issues all the time. We are striving and moving toward operational excellence. People are beginning to understand exactly what they're doing and why they do it and what they're responsible for and what results look like. And they are really starting to knock it out of the park. Like operations is really beginning to do a great job. We have sales and marketing that are aligned with our vision and aligned with the mission and aligned with our core values. And they are performing at a very high level. And we are measuring and having conversations about how that side of our business is doing with their numbers and their metrics and their results, right? So this organizational health impacts everything, and it impacts the entire organization. And we need to understand, and I did not say it was easy. This is hard work. This leadership, this mission, this vision, this values, these healthy organizations, this is hard work. And it looks a little different than what some of us are used to as an organization, right? So the biggest lessons from Advantage. Organizational health is the ultimate competitive advantage. When you begin to get in the rhythm of the things we've been talking about these last two podcasts, it is amazing over time to watch what happens in your organization or your department. Their leadership teams must trust one another. And it's one of the biggest challenges that I've noticed is emotionally, we're not all as intelligent as we should be about what we're saying, what we're doing, how we're acting and reacting. So it can create some fear, and I'm not sure. And it can create some chaos. It can create some cover your butt emails, right? We need leadership teams that will just close the door and we can have open and not personal conversations and trust each other that we can make the best decision for this organization, right? Leadership teams must trust each other. We need clarity because it eliminates confusion, which is where we wait, we pause, we almost finish. We want to make sure somebody double checks. We're not exactly sure. We've been waiting, right? Clarity eliminates confusion, right? Communication creates alignment. Not realizing the power of communication. The more we say it, the more we do it, the more we demonstrate it, the more we put it on the wall, the more we put it on shirts, the more we share stories. Communication creates the alignment where we become one organization with multiple people all moving in the same direction. Here's the next thing. Culture has to be reinforced every day, especially the leadership team. We got to be very conscious about how we're walking, how we're acting, how we're reacting. We need to try to reinforce this culture every day. And healthy organizations execute faster and better. Why? Clarity, communication, accountability, teamwork, right? Trust. All of these things contribute to me going much faster and much better than this company and some guy that's in a similar position to me down the road somewhere. I'm fixing to run circles around that guy, right? Because my company, we're working as a unit. Yes, there's 50 of us, or yes, there's 10 of us, and we all have different jobs. But man, we communicate. We're on the same page. We're moving things forward. Healthy organizations execute faster and better, and great companies are built from the inside out. So that's it. The advantage. I'm telling you, if you apply these things we've talked about over these last two podcasts, just give them a chance. Take some baby steps. Just try a few things. I know it's difficult. It's hard. It's going to be someplace it's going to be drastic, but I'm telling you, if you can get your arms around this over the next 12 or 24 or 36 months, it is amazing to see what happens in a culture and in a company. My name is Bobby Mink with Choice Consulting and Management, and we want to thank you for joining us at Choices Create Change podcast. If you enjoyed our two-part series on The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni, then let us know. If you have topics you would like for us to discuss, go to choiceconsultingman.com/podcast and leave us a message and subscribe to get our new podcast every week. Contact us at choiceconsultingman.com/contact if you want to book a coaching session about some of the things we talked about on this session or some of our last podcast. So let's get started of a journey of creating and leveraging an amazing culture. You got this. So let's go crush it.